Thank you, everybody, and thanks to Jonah Albert and the British Library for hosting us tonight. As Jonah said, I'm Sharmila Beesmohan, and together with Sarah Sanders, who's there taking photos, and Nick Chapman, who's recording the event, we're Speaking Volumes, an independent literature organisation which Sarah and I co-founded in 2010. In the tradition of many generations before us, we aim to contribute to the ongoing struggle for racial equality and social justice by giving voice to artists often outside the establishment, from black and brown writers to those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and, most recently, by focusing 3 projects on older women's creativity. Today, we celebrate Black British women's huge contributions to society with the publication of Good, Good, Loving, a brilliant new novel about an older Black woman looking back on her life by the highly acclaimed author Yvette Edwards. It's a brilliant read. And of Challenging Britannia, Black British Women Speak Volumes, a collection of engrossing interviews with 7 older Black women in the arts. Challenging Britannia is the culmination of our Women Speak Volumes Between Generations project, which has centred older Black women and has also given a cohort of young Black women the chance to learn about archives, oral histories, and how to highlight their own communities' stories. For, as the oral historian Bettany Hughes noted in 2016, women have always been 50% of the population, but only occupy around 0.5% of recorded history. In these fraught times, it's never been more important to hear the hidden diverse voices around us. We'd like to thank a number of people and organisations for making this possible. Firstly, for funding the project, the National Lottery Heritage Fund and Professor Maggie Morehouse, Director of the Burroughs Fund at Coastal Carolina University in the USA. Our appreciation to Sophie Perkins from the Heritage Fund and to Maggie, who are both here tonight. A round of applause for them. Thank you. Thanks too to that entrepreneurial force of nature, Joy Francis, who came to us with the initial idea of the interviews and conducted all 7 at public events. The project was also supported and promoted by Joy's forward-thinking organisation, Words of Colour. The public events were held at 198 Contemporary Arts and Learning in South London, a pioneering art space which has been hosting events, exhibitions and educational programmes since the 1980s. Our appreciation to Lucy Davis and all at 198 and all the staff. Thank you too to all the phenomenal women who shared their inspiring stories, from the triumphs over adversity to the hilarious, many of whom are here tonight. They are Director Paulette Randall, there, composer Dominique Legendre, hiding at the back, artist Ingrid Pollard, dancer and choreographer Sharon Watson, actress and author Annie Domingo, children's writer and publisher Verna Wilkins, and poet Valerie Bloom. The George Padmore Institute, an archive in North London housing unique materials relating to the political and cultural activism of Black and brown people in the UK over the last 70 years, was a key partner in hosting workshops for the cohort and is also the publisher of the book as part of their Life Experience with Britain series. Thanks to Sarah Garrard and Teresa Palmiero at the GPI, plus Glenda Pattenden for her book design, and Dominique Legendre and Priya Hart for their editorial work. Finally, we'd like to thank the cohort of young Black women who committed to the 18-month-long Women Speak Volumes Between Generations project and who have brought us all real hope for the future. Shout out to some of the initial group of 11 who are here tonight: Abby, Ade, Kimberly, Olivia, and Talitha. Films of 6 of the interviews can be found on the Speaking Volumes website, but you'll need to buy the book to read all of the interviews. So please do that afterwards, and all the books of the other authors as well. We're now going to watch a short trailer of some of the talks, and then we'll introduce the panel. Thank you.
made you want to act? Because obviously from that you're doing many other things which you'll touch on, but what was it about acting that appealed to you?
The first time I went on, my sister's older than me, and we went to a school where there was from the nursery right up to GCSE, but they didn't call GCSE in those days. So I used to have to wait for my sister, and she was doing some show for the prize giving, and I used to go there, and I was a critic. I used to say, she can't do it. I was 4. And I just learned everybody's part. And then, I swear to God, it wasn't me. I did not do it, sir. One of them fell ill. And I said, I can do it. And I said, no, it's not your class. But I know it. And I did it. And I got on stage. And I can still remember, I was wearing my brother's blue shorts and a red t-shirt. And boy. And they clapped and they laughed. I went, boy, I like this.
I didn't have any aspirations to be an author or a publisher. I had 2 boys. The older son did a project, and it was a This Is Me project. And you had to make up a little notebook about yourself. And he had a circle on the cover, and he had his face. And it was pinky, peachy skin color, white skin. And I said, is this your project? And he said, yes. I said, is this you? And he said, this is me. And I said, okay, but are you that color? Because my inside was my heart. I said, but are you that color? And he said, no. You know, a 5-year-old condescending, but why are you asking me a stupid question? No, I'm not that color. I said, well, not to worry. When we get home, I got a brown color, and we'll color you in bright color, and then it'll be really you. He took it back from me, and he said, it has to be that color, Mom. It's for a book. And that scared me. I had no choice then. I had to do something.
When the idea of being a black photographer was elusive, so you sort of put that, all 10 of you put that on the map. What is your memory of that time?
And I did some images about Hackney actually, that sort of parallel north and south market. Just remember the opening and how we were left to do what we wanted to do basically in terms of what we were showing. I met lots of people that I then came subsequently to know a bit more, or we had alliances with our work, but a lot of that was about meeting people, and socialising and activism were the same. They were the same thing. Performances, music and exhibitions. So that was when I was at London College of Printing.
That sounds like an exciting time.
Yeah, Rita Keegan was in it, and lots of other people. And I was doing drumming and performance as well as showing work. It's kind of funny.
So I've got to add that to the list of the many things that you do now.
Don't do now. It's only since when Europe or countries other than our own that suddenly you become a colour and not a nationality, So that's always a little bit strange. And over years, I've grown accustomed to it. I've learned to kind of accommodate myself to it. But at heart, essentially, I'm a composer. I'm a Trinidadian composer. And I definitely can't take the Trinidadian out of myself as a composer. And it's not so much because I'm black, it's because I'm Trinidadian. Trinidad shaped me, so that's what I am.
I think for Windrush, because everybody's got their story, everybody's got a version of it that works for them. So when I was creating this, I had to really be true to what I knew in terms of my relationship with my parents, my relationship with the information and those that were giving me the narrative to work with. And there's a section in the piece where you see the women with masks on. And we had an argument in the studio about that. The company is mixed. It's got every nationality in the room. I spoke to my mum and I said, how do I do this? And she said, well, they were faceless and they were grey. That's how she described the women. Everything seemed to fold into one, and actually where I went to bed that night, this is where I just thought, oh my gosh, I've been guided. And I woke up the next morning and I started the journey around making the washing line section, and by the end of the day I knew exactly how it was going to work. So that was a guidance, because it had everything I needed in it, no blacks, no dogs, you know, all of that, and yet it still held its own.
I want children who have the same background as mine to value their culture. Because we grew up being told that anything Jamaican was bad and anything English was good. And it's the same thing Louise Bennett said, you know, we go through that because of our history when, you know, and for a long time, if you're being told that over and over, you believe it. And it was only in the 40s or thereabouts when linguists came to Jamaica and found out that this language was a language in its own right, with its own syntax and so on. And so I wanted to let children know that, because when I first came, I was teaching them Jamaican folk songs and poems and things. These children are from all over the world, and there was only one girl who said her mother would not allow her to take part because she was too young to talk patois. And that's the idea they came here with, that patois was bad and English was good. And so if you don't have all of your culture, you're only half a person.
Go back to what is it that you want to say, and then work out how you want to say it. Because I think the landscape will always change. And I think, you know, there's, at the moment, I was saying to someone, isn't it interesting, you turn on the telly, certainly as a Londoner, and you see every advert, one of us is there somewhere. One of us is there somewhere, and you kind of go, them soon come for me, because after a while they're going to go, it's too much of them on the telly. So you're going to get a backlash, do you know what I mean? So what you have to do is kind of go, don't sit on your laurels. We can never kind of go, which is why I'm saying, yes, things are improving, but, you know, it goes backwards and forwards. And we just have to stay on top of it. As a woman, and as a woman of colour, all of those, as a working class woman of colour, you have to just keep, don't ever shy away from what you are, because that's the thing that's going to attract them the most. Always. So just keep going back to that truth.
That film was made by Nick from Speaking Volumes, so thanks Nick for that great job. Nice. The panel are now going to come up on stage, but I'm just going to introduce our chair for the evening first, Bernardine Evaristo, who actually needs no introduction, but I will just say London-born Bernardine is the acclaimed author of 10 books spanning fiction, non-fiction, poetry, essays, literary criticism, journalism, and radio and theatre drama. Among her many awards, she was the first black woman and black British person to win the 2019 Booker Prize for her novel Girl, Woman, Other. Bernardine is a long-standing activist and advocate for inclusion in literature and the arts, initiating several schemes to ensure increased representation, most recently the Royal Society of Literature's Pioneer Prize and Scriptorium Awards. Her most recent book is also her first non-fiction work, Manifesto on Never Giving Up. So welcome Bernardine and the panel. Thank you.
Hi everybody, it's great to be here. I want to thank Shamila and Nick and Sarah from Speaking Volumes for all the incredible work they've done for so many years supporting our writers and creatives, and this is just the latest thing that they've done. This book, Challenging Britannia, featuring, as you saw, these incredible black women creatives who've been in the game for 40, maybe 50, maybe 60 years, I think. you know, we're often overlooked, people are overlooked, black women are overlooked, older black women are overlooked, you know, that's just the reality of our culture. And so it's wonderful to have a book like that where we're getting the wisdom and the experiences of these writers. And I urge you all to go and buy the book because it is an absolute delight to read. So I'm now going to introduce our panel for today. So I'm going to start with Yvette Edwards in the middle there. Yvette has authored 3 novels, A Cupboard Full of Coats in... That's starting really well. A Cupboard Full of Coats in 2011, The Mother in 2016, and her new novel, Good, Good Loving, which was published just 2 days ago. Yes. I have to say, buy this book. It is absolutely amazing. It's a tragicomedy. It's about a family, but it's told, as you heard, through the story of a 75-year-old woman, and it is absolutely sensational. And it's just out now, and I think it's going to gain momentum, and I hope it does really well for Yvette, because it is an amazing novel. And she's an amazing writer anyway, full stop. So please, go and get Good, Good Loving after this. And I'm going to be interviewing Yvette tomorrow night at Brixton House. So it'll just be the 2 of us, and I'll be talking to her about her work and about this book. And I think there might be some seats left if anybody's interested. So her books have been honoured with nominations for the Booker Prize, Writers Guild Award, NAACP Image Award, Commonwealth Writers Prize, Hurston Wright Legacy Award, International Impact Dublin Literary Award, and the Waverton Good Read Award. Her short story, Security, was published in Margaret Busby's New Daughters of Africa anthology in 2019, and she is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. And now Joy Francis, who's sitting there at the end, is the co-founder and executive director of Words of Colour. A former journalist, academic, and editor, she is now a creative entrepreneur, curator, producer, writer, cultural and change agency strategist. She is a long-standing activist for racial equality and cultural inclusion in literature, publishing, and the media. Most recently, Joy co-founded the Poets of Colour Incubator with Manchester Poetry Library and Manchester Metropolitan University, and the citywide Remembering What's Forgotten hybrid programme and digital exhibition centring mental health and racial justice with Synergy Leeds. She became an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in 2022. Joy is also, surprisingly, an emerging DJ. DJ Hybrid J, with a monthly residency called Chillin' with Attitude on G-Shock Radio. And now, finally, we have Andy Oliver, who is known as a broadcaster, chef, and author, rising to fame in the 1980s with Nena Cherry in their band Rip, Rig, and Panic. I advise you all to go on YouTube and see them performing because they were wild. Yes. She moved into television and radio in the 1990s. In 2006, she presented The Truth About Food for the BBC. And in 2007, she and Nena Cherry hosted BBC Two cooking series, Nena and Andy Dish It Up. Since then, Andy has been a regular on our screens from shows such as the Great British Menu and book programmes on Sky Arts to the 2-part film, The Caribbean with Andy and Makita in 2021, where she and her daughter embarked on a life-changing journey to the islands of their heritage, Antigua and Barbuda and then Barbados. Always in the kitchen and running restaurants alongside her media career, in 2023, Andy published her cookbook, The Pepper Pot Diaries, Stories from My Caribbean Table. It's absolutely great to be sitting here talking to you 3 absolutely amazing women. I feel that this is quite a groundbreaking event because I've never participated in an event like this, which is focusing on older black women in the arts with, as I said, these kind of really long, amazing careers. I am 66 years old, and in 2019, I started telling everybody my age. I just thought, I'm just going to tell them. Because, you know, we tend to hide it. and I got over the ageism, the internalized ageism about being older, which in many cultures is something to celebrate, right? You're actually, you're older, you're wiser, you've contributed an incredible amount, and it's something to be valued. But we know that in this society, the emphasis is on youth, and there are all kinds of issues around aging. So what I want to ask you, first of all, I'm going to ask kind of general questions to the panel, is how did your childhood, and you all have Caribbean immigrant parents, how did your childhood shape you to become the people who became creative? So can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in the UK at the time that you did, and how that began to shape you? Who wants to start?
I'll start. I'm happy to start. I think, well, my dad was in the RAF for a start, so I moved around quite a lot, and I think that has been quite key to me being good at the things that I'm good at, because I was constantly in a new room, in a new place with new people. I was very often the only black person there, let alone the only black girl. In my whole school in Suffolk, when I got to Suffolk when I was about 10, I was the only black girl in that school, the only black girl in the town. There were only 3 other black kids in the school, and one of them was my brother, do you know what I mean? So it was, so I'm used to sort of having to be quite fast on my feet. They call it hypervigilance in psychotherapy, and it's kind of seen as a kind of negative thing, but actually it's also, even though it's been a challenging thing, it's also been quite useful for me, because I can read a room really quickly and I kind of understand what something needs instinctively. It's not even conscious, it just kind of happens. And I think that actually that having that hurdle, or having that come up again and again and again, has meant that I've never seen barriers. I don't really pay them any attention. You know, if I want to do something, I just get on and do it. I also think that's to do with being from the punk generation, Mr. Linton. Do you know what I mean? It's like we grew up in a moment and in a time where if you wanted to start a band or write a poem or, you know, design a dress or do a dinner or decide you were right, whatever, you just got on and did it. And there wasn't really that much judgment going on around. It was a very DIY kind of culture. And I think that has stood me in really good stead, actually, because it's made me kind of casually brave. Do you know what I mean? I don't really think about it, but I realise retrospectively there's loads of things that we all did where you just kind of hurled your body at it and just got on with it. and retrospectively I think, my God, I did what? You know, we did what, when, with whom, and it wasn't something being challenging was not a block to getting on with it.
Okay, but you could have been crushed by your childhood.
Absolutely.
So what was the difference then? Was it your family? Were it your parents? Did they nurture you in a certain way? Did you have like somebody who looked after you?
My dad was bipolar, and there were loads of difficulties there. My mother is a very steadfast human being. She's a teacher, and my uncle was one of the first black headmasters in this country. Like, I come from a family of people who tell you to get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Read a book, find out. If I needed to know something, my mum would go, well, go and look it up in the encyclopedia. I was taught to keep going. And I'm a survivor, I think, just naturally. You know what I mean? I'm just always going to get back up again and just try the next thing. And I think that does come from my mum. She just is very solid. She lives with me now, actually. She's 89. She's still like that. She's kind of immovable, but gently so. You don't really know that she's such a sort of bedrock until you kind of really get to know her, and then you realise that there's a lot going on under the surface of the water, if you see.
And then where does it come from with her, do you think?
That's from my grandma,
Okay.
Mama. My grandmother, Dorothy Maturin Prince, was an extraordinary woman. She had 12 kids, made all their clothes. They all went on to excel in loads of different areas. And she was just an exceptional human being, you know, and all her kids, her grandkids, everybody is just... We were taught from... I can't remember there being a time where we weren't shown to follow our heart and do the thing that makes you happy, to follow your creative path, if that's what it is. They're quite academic, my family, and I really wasn't. I left school when I was 16. But my mother always taught me that there are many ways to reach your goals. Some reach it through academia, some reach it through living in a squat and doing whatever you wanted, which is kind of what happened to me. Do you know what I mean? But there's a way of finding your own path, as long as you make sure you're following a path, that you're not just meandering. That was really the message that I was always given.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yvette?
I don't know the answer to this question.
I grew up with my mum, who is a single parent, and my brother. So my mum's a really big influence on me. She always worked really hard and had more than one job. So I think I definitely, that is like a work ethic that I've taken on board. And I always feel as though I've had several jobs on the go at once. So parenting, working, and doing the writing. She was kind of very feisty. Well, she still is very feisty, actually, and. I think that she read a lot, so I read a lot of the stuff that my mum read when I was younger, and she was always very interested in words. Like she used to get the Reader's Digest, and they used to have a kind of quiz on one of the pages, which was kind of word based, and I can remember very distinctly. We would go through that word, whatever the word of that particular magazine episode was. And I remember once there was a question. It was if somebody called you a plebeian, would you A, thank them, B, be offended, or C, whatever C was. And we had no idea what our response would be, and so we sounded the word out. And it was like, if somebody says, like, you're a plebeian, actually that sounds quite nice, doesn't it? Like, and so we concluded as a group that we would thank them. And then, of course, when we got to the actual answer, we were in shock. And I feel like that was maybe... because words, I feel that words are very powerful, that they have like an enormous capacity to affect change, and the way. And I think maybe I feel like that's maybe like the beginning of my interest in words and in literature. But also, my mum used to be very creative herself, although she hasn't really kind of. She was a teacher, and so she didn't really go down a creative path, although she has done a bit of being a stand-up comedian, like in her old age, randomly. What? It's just like, yeah. Anyway,
tell us more about that.
So she did it. She said that she was interested in public speaking, and that somebody had said to her that being a stand-up comedian was like a really good way to like. But anyway, so she was a stand-up comedian for a period, not a well-known. She did a course, and she did some events. But she also used to be very creative. Like she used to make things up on the spot, like when I was younger. So I remember she had a job. She was like a secretary in an office, and she was the only black person there. And she came home one day, and she said that the people in the office were laughing because somebody had found out that black people eat plantain. And they were saying to her, "Oh, it's like bananas, isn't it? Like, do you eat plantain?" And she said to them, she's really very much a foodie. All of my food interest, I think, comes from my mum and her cooking. She said to them, "Oh yes, we have it quite regularly at home. I lightly saute it, and we have it with brandy and creme fraiche." And it was like the most bizarre, because I don't know any black person who ever had plantain. my life. It's just never ever happened. And, but it was such an astonishing thing to me that she had come up with that, like, on the spot. And she said that everyone was, like, really shocked, but also kind of respectful, because they'd begun the conversation taking the mick out of her, and had ended up thinking, wow, you know. And so maybe some of my kind of creativity, like, from my mum, I think.
Was she a good storyteller, do you think?
Yeah, she used to tell stories, and that because you were talking about where does that come from in her? My granddad was an amazing storyteller. He had a really, really quiet voice, and when he began telling it, you'd know he'd begun telling a story like at a family do, because it was very noisy and everyone was shouting and drinking and blah blah, and then it would go quiet, and then you'd crowd in so that you could hear my granddad's voice, and he'd tell stories of just his observations on life. He was very, very intelligent, I think, and but he also had a fantastic sense of humour. He also had a really deadpan delivery. So I think people never knew whether or not he was joking about the things that he said, which added another level of like intrigue to like understanding his stories. But he was really, really interesting, and said some really, really shocking things. And I think he liked shocking people, and sometimes the things that he said were so shocking, people didn't really kind of know how to understand it except in the context of him making a joke, and so they would laugh at really shocking things that he said.
What sort of things would they be?
So this is so I say I mean. I went to Montserrat with my granddad when I was like probably about 20, and for the first time, this is really quite sad as well. For the first time, I was going to meet my mum's sister, and we went to her place of work, and it's a small island, and so it was very exciting, and for like lots of people on the island knew that we were there, and she worked in like a solicitor's office, and she was a secretary, and all the solicitors were men, and when we went there, everyone was everyone had gathered because it was such a like one-off event, and anyway, we walked through this kind of crowd of people, and there was this woman who I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, that's my mum's sister, I recognise her, she's definitely, and then he basically said, oh, this is your mum's sister. I'm sorry about the looks, but I was in a hurry at the time. and then it was the whole, like, nobody knew how to respond to it, and so it was just silent, and then everyone began to laugh, but it wasn't funny. It was really not funny. It was just it was really. Yeah, it was a terrible thing, I think.
But actually, in Good Loving, you can see some of that playing out with the characters.
Yeah. He was a really very astonishing character, my granddad. Yeah.
Wow, cool. Thank you. Joy.
It's just funny because I'm so used to interviewing people. And I've interviewed Bernadine, I've interviewed Yvette, and now this explains everything. I tell you, and also you've given me time because I was like, Lord, have we got enough time to hear? Right, so I'm going to centre first of all on my mother, because I think my mum, I'm one of 5 girls. There's 3 years between each of us. We grew up in Tottenham, which was a hotbed of political activism. Bernie Grant visited my school, and I was mentored by him for a very short space of time. Tottenham Hotspurs used to win things, cups. But I'd say that in terms of my mum, who's a force of nature, and there's a period where she's a single parent. My birth father was violent, but she got rid of him, and I think what that did was empower all of us. She centred education. She centred travel. She was a shop steward at Thorn Factory, and there were hardly any women who were shop stewards and not a black woman. She was entrepreneurial and creative. She made clothes. And those, the thing is, those are the days when you went to school, you had this amazing coat on, and she knew a lot of Greek Cypriot women who also, and a lot of them had factories. And so, her community, the community I grew up with was very diverse, Irish. Our neighbours knew each other. They knew my mum. When I got knocked over at 11 by a Harry and Gay fan, we didn't win the case. But I managed to survive that. But it was not near where I lived. And yet they saw me and said, get her mum. They knew exactly who my parents were. And so before I even got to hospital, they got them. So that's the sort of, community we grew up in. And she sold clothes, she made clothes. She knew all the, those days when you had cash and carry and all those places where you had to have a shop, a big business. She went in there, she charmed them, she'd be selling jumpers. So I was around all that. She sold Avon on the side.
Oh, yeah.
And then she basically, one of the area managers said, you could do this at a senior level. And she became one of the first black area managers for Avon and worked her way up. And she left school at 15 to look after her older sister's children. So that's why she valued education. And also, I think what was really important is the fact we grew up in a house full of music. There's no surprise. I mean, I collected, we had, Philomena, I might ask you about this because your memory is like an elephant. But we were surrounded by bands. I think it was, one of the reggae bands at the bottom of our road where I went to school, Imagination and Ultravox were practicing. So that was just, creativity was an inherent part of the culture of my life. And it wasn't seen as lesser than, even though, yes, they wanted you to do well at school. Creative expression was really important. Food was how my mum expressed love. Anything grew in her hands. She'd go to Jamaica, dry the seeds, and plant them. So when I went to, Sainsbury's, as it was touted itself as the main supermarket, I'd go, how come their tomatoes don't look like the ones we're growing in the garden? And so I think, and there was nothing you felt you couldn't do. I mean, we butted heads, but I always had to argue my case. And, I think that having that sense of freedom, I mean, obviously she was concerned about us being in the world, but we discussed racism, sexism, misogyny. And I think one of the things that I will carry with me is the fact that do not centre a man. In my case, I'm straight, but, because there was a tradition, isn't it, about in Caribbean, I'm Jamaican, where the man would get served first. I'd get vexed. Why is he getting the plate before me? And my sister, those sort of things. So I think there was that mutuality in terms of educating each other. And one thing I have to say that was really, really funny is she, because she was always outperforming herself, we'd come and there's a new sofa. Where did that come from? Oh, I won that from, through Avon. And one of her prized possession was this cookery book. Because, Friday used to be what we call English night for the food. So that's when we could have the fish and chip, and so all of a sudden there was this book, and she cooked everything from it. Thai food was one day where I said, I am so not ready for this. The fish looked like it was alive. She goes, well, that's how it looked in the book. I'm like, and you couldn't leave the table before you finished eating. And another thing I just want to end on, because that's what I'm saying to you, I'm just telling you a fraction. I mean, one, she made me have an 18th birthday party, imagine. So she could have the adults in one room. Used to do the sound speakers. So the young people had their music in one room, and the adults had their music and the dub in the other room. And, they cooked the food brilliantly. But I think that this whole notion of not being able to express, and I think the whole title, about Women Speak Volumes, a lot of the time it was in closed spaces. It was at home. It was in church, where people felt safe, how gregarious we were, But I'm just really thankful for that experience and the tension, because we're here.
Thank you, Joy. I know we haven't got enough time. I could just sit here and not say anything. And these guys would just run with it. It's amazing. But I'm going to read a quote from Paulette Randall in the book as a sort of a prompt for the next question. So Paulette says, "You can't do it without the dreams. That's what got you started in the first place. So if that goes, then I've finished. Do you know what I mean? It's over. So no, that hasn't gone. And yes, of course, sometimes it's really hard. But then, as I said, surround yourself with people who love you. And I don't mean that in a wanky way. I mean that in a really, really positive way. So what I want to ask you is, so we've looked at your little bit of your childhood, fraction of your childhood. So you've all had these careers, you know, Andy, you've done lots of different things. Joy, you've done lots of different things. Yvette, I know you've juggled several things.
I've done lots of different work.
Lots of different work. So what I want to know is, what did you dream of doing, and how did you negotiate or navigate that through your life? Because you're all now known for certain things. So let's start with you, Yvette.
Okay.
What was your dream, and did it change, and how did it fit in with the other things that you were doing, and what were those other things?
So most of the work that I've done has been kind of public-facing, local authorities. I know how to get jobs with local authorities. I'm an expert. So I go and work for local authorities, then I leave them and say I'm never going back. And then I'll do the writing, and then when I run out of money, I'll go back to the local authorities because then I can get jobs. So I've worked in housing benefits, worked in housing, worked in, I don't know, council tax, done advice work. So all kind of really housing and benefits, that kind of stuff. Lots of different jobs around that. And then the writing, I've always written. So even when I was young, I used to write. I used to go to school. Everyone used to write, but I used to enjoy writing, and I did it as a hobby, like not when it was obligatory, and I enjoyed it. And I think it's always been cathartic for me, and that's the reason why I have always continued. But I never ever thought about being a writer, and as an adult. As a writer now, I think it's really important for children to experience different occupations that people can take up, because if you never see it, if there's never anyone around you who does a particular job, or you read books, yes, but you've never seen anyone write one, or even know of anybody who has attempted to do something like that, then it just never occurred to me. So I was just writing, but I was writing for my own kind of pleasure for ages, and also a bit of a daydreamer. So I don't think I'm not really, I feel like I'm not, I know that like having produced 3 books, it means that I must be, have a level of discipline, but I feel kind of undisciplined about doing things that I'm not interested in. I can't seem to settle down to do things that I'm not interested in. So I don't know what the sum of this is. I please myself. I please myself, and I write because the writing pleases me. Yeah.
So being a writer wasn't a dream, because it wasn't even in your sort of orbit.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't something that I.
But did it become? At what point did it become a dream? At some point.
So I think that probably around my mum did trained as a mature student, did a teacher training degree, and I was probably about maybe, can't remember, 18 something, maybe around that age. And one of the books on her course was Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye, and she'd always been like a really big reader, but she read everything by Dick Francis, Danielle Steele, Harold Robbins, Stephen King. I basically read what my mum read because I read her books, and then when she read The Bluest Eye, it blew her mind, and then she gave it to me and said, "Oh my God, you have to read this book." And it was extraordinary. I'd never read anything like it in my life, and I really, I don't know, I feel like on some level of it, because I'd read Mildred D. Taylor, but like that's when I had a proper awareness of the fact that black women could write books, and whole books about black people that people were not only reading but they were studying them, and that was probably a very defining moment.
So that was maybe the beginning of a dream, although maybe you wouldn't have called it that at the time.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it, and then still didn't have a structured plan. I'm not really a very structured type of person, but I did a bit of writing. I had to go. I didn't want to write. I didn't get to books. I got to, first of all, I thought I was a poet, and I wrote some really, really bad poetry, usually around broken relationships, and it was all really grim. And then I realised I wasn't a poet, and then I thought maybe I'm a playwright, and so then I wrote some plays, but I couldn't really take criticism. So like, well, did I say I couldn't take criticism? I couldn't take advice, and so I'd write something and I'd send it off somewhere. I'd say, I'll see if they're interested in this. I never did any editing, and I get it back, and sometimes it would be quite like, I've looked at those letters like as now, and so sometimes they're really helpful. I think your main character could do with a little bit more development. That maybe this part here, like you could have a look at that. And I just took offence as soon as I got that letter back. I just took offence. I had a long list of people I was never ever going to send anything to ever again, and they just go on that list, and then I just move on to something else. Literally, just that's what I did, and. Yeah, here I am.
Here you are. Andy, so you started off in music.
Yeah.
And then you've just done so many different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm quite hyperactive, do you know what I mean? So for me, it's the dreaming, what I wanted to be has always been quite a kind of nebulous thing. It's constantly changing. I mean, I wanted to be Shirley Bassey.
Oh, okay.
Or Audrey Hepburn. Really bizarre. Or Eartha Kitt. I remember seeing Eartha Kitt coming on TV. For a start, there was a black woman on TV and so glamorous. And then she was on a sort of chaise longue, and all these dudes were carrying her, and I was like, that looks great. I'd like to do that, I think I was probably about 14 or something, and I went on stage for the first time, like outside of school. I was in the Suffolk Youth Theatre, and we did Midsummer Night's Dream in Bury St Edmunds at the Theatre Royal, and I was Titania. I got on that stage, I had red sequin stuff on, and the light hit me, and I was like, oh, really cool. I'm into Annie, do you know what I'm saying? Like that moment. And so for me, it felt like a safe place, actually. And I think I felt unsafe quite a lot because of all the stuff I spoke about earlier. And stage and performance has always felt like somewhere where I was allowed to spread out and take up space and be myself. So I think the dream for me was that feeling more than necessarily one way of getting to that feeling. So it's music or writing or singing or cooking or, whatever it's been. There's been so many different paths to that. And I think that the root of all of the creativity and all the different things that I've done comes from the same place. It's the same desire to feel safe and feel like I can spread out and share love with people and express things that perhaps I find more difficult to put into words sometimes. You know, that emotion, that sort of deep, raw emotion that really isn't about a kind of verbal exchange a lot of the time. It's really a more kind of primal thing than that. And I've just found that in many, many different areas. I feel like somebody was going, well, you're quite lucky. And I said, yeah, it's luck, but it's also, you have to be prepared to be skint. You have to be prepared to, like, have a struggle. And for me, it's interesting you were saying you're not very good at doing things that don't interest you. I'm terrible at it. I'm just awful at it. I'm just thinking, why am I listening? What? Why am I here? So I just get up and I walk out. I just don't do it. And I don't know if that's generational or not. I don't know. I think my parents did loads of things they weren't interested in for longer than I ever stuck at anything that I wasn't interested in. So for me, it's always just been about finding a place where I can express myself. And that's the dream for me, really, is feeling like I have space and time and room for my heart to speak.
Lovely. So we have a few minutes before Yvette's going to give us a reading. So the next question is about, as black women, specific obstacles that you've overcome that you think is on account of your identity, your race and your gender.
All right, I just want to sort of answer the dream question because I didn't get to answer that question a bit. And I think that everything you were saying, Andy, I relate to because I knew that I wanted to engage in words. I was a voracious reader, reading in the middle of the night and I couldn't get up in the morning. But also just fascinated by people and what made them tick. And also I wasn't very good with authority. So I knew that whatever I did would have to enable me a lot of agency. And it could have been music, because I was playing guitar and drums, and I was told drums was unladylike when I was at school. But I think ultimately, most probably, which is a common trait, particularly because I'm 60 now, is the fact that we are entrepreneurial and not one thing can necessarily contain us. And I think we are living our mother's undeclared desires and dreams, I think, possibly, as well. So I just wanted to chip in relation to that. And the other question
sorry,
was,
I forgot.
Yes,
So
What was the other question?
Obstacle as black women that you've overcome.
Okay, so I don't want this to sound arrogant, but I think when I was younger, I didn't see the obstacle in that way. I didn't frame it like that, I don't think. And again, I have to look to my sister. I think she'd testify to that because she used to worry about me because I'd be like, no. You know, I'd be in a cinema and if I heard someone was being abused, I'd argue with that person in the cinema. Same if I was on a bus, intervening when people were 3 times my size and it wasn't safe. I didn't think. So I think that I would say that I was aware that there were barriers, but I didn't necessarily see them as an obstacle. But also I knew I got to a point and grew up and realised, well, look, I need to be around for a long time because I was convinced I wouldn't live beyond 30. Seriously, I didn't think I'd live beyond 30. So I think that made me very rebellious and take more risks. And when I passed 30, I had to rethink and go, oh.
So Joy, why did you think you're not going to live beyond 30?
I don't know. There was something. Look, I'm a Scorpio, and my moon's in Aquarius, and my ascendant is Sagittarian, and so I think that there is this sense of and this is why I'm saying about it's important. Was it Annie or was it Verna? I was saying about the importance of knowing your history. And I think sometimes we are living not as ourselves. We're living our ancestors. And there's things that you don't know, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this? And I think I was very sensitive. So I would pick up on energy fields and everything else, but I just felt that the violence in the world, that's why I'm so glad my mum said, I'm so glad you didn't go to America because she was going to think about going to America. I'm so grateful because I think that was very palpable to me. And knowing also that I had the temperament that I had, I'm one of the calmest people, most compassionate people, and actually quite a delicate soul, I've realised now. But also I'm a warrior. And one crossword I never swore anything, and I'd never hit anybody. One person, right? But yeah, that's another story. But you know where it's like this force in you, where it's like I'm going to stand my ground, and I will eye you out, and my sister would have to leave me and go and say, you know what, this is not going to end well. But it was this sense that do not think you can control me and speak for me, or just presume anything because I'm a girl, even though I never looked like a girl. So there's part of me that sort of accepted that, you know what, I may take it a step too far, or be in a situation where someone doesn't respect my boundaries, and I may not be here. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? But I think once I hit 30, all of a sudden, well, and then I reframed my life. But it was all, yeah. But I really, it's really weird. It's like, Bernadine, throwing this back at you, when you said about imposter syndrome, what's that? You know, obstacle, what's that? You know, I may take a longer way to get where I need to get to, because I do like my freedom and my peace and a quality life and calmness. So I may not go that route, but when you go that route, you just pick up and learn so much, and I keep safe.
Great, thank you. Andy?
I think, particularly in broadcasting, I had to be really clear and boundaried, like very, very clear. And even when I've sat in meetings and gone, these are things I won't do. These are things that I went to the Caribbean with Matt Tevitt to do this thing for a Channel 4 programme. And I didn't really want to do it. And they kept asking. I said, okay, but I'll only go if you really adhere to these boundaries for me. I'm not going to the sugar plantation. I'm not going to there's certain things I'm just not going to do because it's just not appropriate. And you're not going to do it right, and it's not going to be, there's not enough time within this framework for us to explore the proper history and to really talk about it properly. So I'm not going to do certain things. I get to the airport and I get this script through. That's the first thing, and I couldn't believe it. I'd literally had 3 very clear meetings with them. I get this script through that says, Andy goes to the sugar plantation. Somebody's teaching her to chop cane.
Oh, whoa.
And she's not very good at it.
Oh.
So the old man comes along who's been chopping cane and shows her how to do it properly. And I was so pissed off. I was like, I'm not getting on the plane.
No.
I'm just not doing it. I've been really clear that we're not going to do this. We spoke about it. You know, I'm a very articulate person. I wasn't mucking around. I just, I very clearly told her what I wouldn't do. The first thing, and he went, oh, no, that's just a filler. I said, yeah, but it's a really offensive filler. How can you not understand that? Anyway, my agent speaks to them. We go through this whole thing. I get on the plane. We go to Barbados. And every 3rd day, there's some bullshit, right? And by halfway through, and I'm a grafter. I will work. I love to work. I will work till it's middle of the night. I like it. I've got all this energy. I need somewhere to put it. You know what I mean? I'm into it. But I was just like, look, we're going to have to stop, because I don't know how to explain to you any more than I've already explained to you that there are certain things that are just not cool, There was a guy who was he was diving for lionfish, which is a fish they've got in Barbados, and they've started using instead of flying fish because of everybody. It's so famous. They've fished out all the flying fish in Barbados, so they've been cooking this lionfish thing. And last time I was there, I'm going to make this really brief because I know we're running out of time. But last time I was there, I met this woman. So the question is, what are the challenges you face? The challenge you face is that people are incredibly offensive repeatedly, and I'm supposed to breathe through it. Do you know what I mean? And some people are lucky I've had therapy. It's really that simple. It's like, what the actual hell is going on here, This woman looked me in my face and said to me, oh, you'll love it here, this English woman, and said, you'll love it here because if you work hard, you can get really far because people here are quite lazy. And I I've got to go and find my daughter. Because it was like, you know, you're talking about the force comes up through your body, and I just was like, oh my God, please don't let me take this woman out again. Yeah. So I went and found Makita, and Makita was like, okay, just breathe. What are we going to do? We made a plan, we went back, and it ended up being part of the filming. And, you know, in the end, we didn't even have to say anything. They're hoist by their own petard. Because if you let people like that speak, you don't actually have to do the knocking them out. Because they do it for themselves, verbally, you know? It was really extraordinary. Anyway, very briefly, I went back and I was telling this fisherman the story, and he went, well, she's not wrong, is she? And I was like, oh, why is this happening to me? You know, again and again and again. And I think as a black woman, you were supposed to soak everything up, absorb it, and be reasonable. And the question was, what is the most challenging thing that I've come up against being a black woman? It's the being reasonable. Repeatedly in the face of extraordinary microaggression and macroaggression, again and again and again. And it's tiring. It's tiring. I find it exhausting. I mean, I do it. And I found ways to, I mean, therapy, they are lucky I've had therapy. I'm lucky I've had therapy because it's given me a lexicon and a vocabulary to deal with that kind of crap. But it's as everybody in this room knows, it's constant, it's tiring, and it's consistently frustrating.
And that's why from 29, I've run my own.
Yeah.
I've run my own company because I know. You just know yourself. You just know yourself. You have to.
It's exhausting. Music helps. Books help. Books helped when I was a kid. You know, you were talking about all the books. You were talking about all the books you had. Like books were the sort of gave me the pathway, the footprints that you understood that another life was possible, other ways of living were possible, other human beings and structures, social structures were possible and indeed magical and at the end of your fingertips, you know. So you just have to, I just have to remember to give myself the balm that I need to read my books and listen to my music and have a dance and cook my food and do the things that I know bring a kind of counterbalance back into my life.
Great, great, thank you. Yvette? When I did, like, so not my poetry phase, but like when I moved into like playwriting and then and I'd get knockbacks, I did kind of interact with some people and like a few agents and blah blah, and anyway, like I'd get feedback which was very much along the lines of actually what we're wondering about is the mainstream appeal and how this fits in with that, you know, and so then I went through like a phase where I tried a couple of stage plays and then I was thinking maybe it's easier to break through without like worrying so much about mainstream appeal, like with television scripts. So then I tried television scripts for a bit, and it was an even bigger issue with television. And I felt like, and then I wrote this play, and it was basically it was called Problem Page, and Page was the main character. She was an English woman, and she ran a Problem Page column in the newspaper, and basically her and her husband were English. They were the main characters. So the story was about them. And I sneaked my black character literally through the back door. They wanted some work done in the house. And so they took on this black carpenter who came in and did some work. And then the husband just lost his mind having a black man in the house and blah, 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 all this stuff. And then, like, I sent it out a bit, and it was really, like, I was really angry. I was really, really angry that, like, I was having to try and sneak my black people into my work. And, it just, you know, then, like, I had some feedback on it, and I could have, like, made some changes and blah, blah, and I just thought, no, I'm not doing any plays. I'm going to do novels. I'm going to write novels, and nobody is going to tell me
that, like, you know, what I can write and what I can't write, and I don't care about mainstream appeal. I'm just going to write exactly what I want. I'm going to fill it with black people. I'm going to fill my novels with black people, and they're going to be my heroes, they're going to be my anti-heroes, and I'm just going to write what I like. And then I started writing properly. That's when I started writing properly, and I haven't looked back. And I just think, yeah, get on board with it, or go and read someone else.
Yeah,
like,
great.
that's my attitude.
So, great segue. Would you like to now read from Good Loving?
Yeah, right. I'm going to read you a bit from this book. I can't see you now. I don't really need to tell you very much. The novel, the main character, Ellen, in chapter 1, she's on her deathbed, and she's in hospital, and she's surrounded by her family, her children who are talking, and you get the sense as a reader, I hope, that, like, you know, there have been quite big issues in this family. Anyway, she thinks that she's in the process of dying, and she says her goodbyes and everything, and then we're at this point in the first chapter. Don't worry, there's like characters. Don't worry too much about the characters. I think it's like if you go to your neighbour's house and they've got like their, you know, family do, and like you don't know everyone, but you can keep up with the conversations and like the, you know, the dynamics. So like, don't worry too much about the characters, but I'll tell you anything important that you need to know. So this is Ellen, who thought she was dying and said her goodbyes. When she awoke, she knew she was still alive, because she could clearly remember the dream she'd had, so vivid she'd been convinced she really had died. In the dream, Clay, that's her child who died when he was young, had painted her fingernails green, a brilliant emerald green that reminded her of him and Montserrat and all its wonderful greens everywhere about you, everywhere you rested an eye. And it had filled her with an enormous happiness that now matched her sadness at realising it hadn't been real, that she was still alive. She also knew she hadn't died because of the blipping monitors and the fact she still didn't have the energy to open her eyes. She knew there were at least 2 people in the room, one of whom was CJ, that's her son, because she could smell the sweet and acrid aroma of marijuana that lingered about him whenever he'd had a puff, a smell not entirely buried beneath the fresh burst of aftershave applied to mask it, and the Wrigley's spearmint gum he'd chomped on afterwards to prettify his breath. A combination she'd smelt on Clyde, that's her husband, so frequently it had become his signature smell. If she was able to speak, she would have told CJ the same thing she used to tell his father, that instead of cancelling the weed smell, the gum and the aftershave merely added to it, creating a new, more complex aroma that she thought of as minty spliff cologne. She also knew that Cece was with him, her grandson, CJ's youngest child, aged 3, because in addition to the constant pip-pip-pipping of the machinery she was rigged up to, she could hear the frantic, non-stop tinkling and dinging sound effects which accompanied the games he enjoyed playing on his father's phone, interspersed with his occasional yes or no, depending on his performance. To be perfectly honest, Ellen found the repetitive electronic sounds irritating, and she knew that Cece's whatless mother, had she been in the room, would have asked Cece to turn it down, because she had little patience for the demands or noises of any child, especially her own. There was no chance, however, of her being in the room, because the first thing she had done after giving birth to Cece was to instruct the midwife to hand him to CJ, who had taken his newborn son into his arms, instantaneously becoming the equivalent of a full-time single-parent dad, despite living in the same house as the whatless mother. In fact, Ellen would go further and say her son had been turned into a single-parent dad living with 2 kids. She knew CJ and Cece were in the room, but she wasn't sure if anyone else was there, till she heard a raucous snort, which was cut off mid-flow because it had been loud enough to wake the sleeper. And even before Dumpling spoke, Ellen knew who it was, because all Dumpling's pregnancies had been the same. During the last 3 months, she'd appear to be lively and full awake. Then you'd hear a roar, and when you looked, she'd be passed out like a drunk, head floppy on the neck, mouth open wide, snoring her head off, which is how Clyde always slept. And when Clyde did, there was no relatedness at all between that sound and the melodious baritone voice that had attracted her to him in the first place. "Sorry," Dumpling said. "It's fine, sis, you ain't missing nothing. She's sleeping anyway," CJ said. "Was never this bad with the other two," Dumpling said. "Can hardly keep me eyes open." "This is definitely the last one," CJ laughed. "You withdrawing your pension and the child benefit at the same time if it ain't." "You're a fine one to talk," Dumpling said, then laughed. "I don't even know how this one happened." "It's your third," said Claudette. "You must have some idea," said Joycelyn. "Next time their dad passes looking for some, just say no," Claudette said. "Tell him to go look some from his wife," Joycelyn said. "I do," said Dumpling. Her voice was small and sounded hurt, which was typical of the way she spoke when she felt even the teeniest bit sad, and which Ellen had always put down to her being the youngest amongst her siblings, and as a consequence, the forever baby. "Well, he ain't forcing himself on you," Claudette said. "I know that much. Being as he can't even stand without his stick," Joycelyn said. Ellen wasn't able to see Dumpling's face, but if she could, she knew her eyes would have been full of tears, her lips pursed up like the lips of a spoilt child, and Ellen's mind turned once again to the fact that none of the children were married, none of them even in anything resembling a normal long-term relationship. She conceded that CJ's relationship with the whatless mother had been a long-term one, but it was far from normal for a man to be conducting his life like a single parent when he was actually in a relationship and living with the mother of his child. All those years and wasted efforts, the trouble she'd gone to ensuring CJ never cooked a thing in her kitchen, never washed a spoon or cup, all so that when he became a man, no woman could take liberties with him. Yet here he was in a relationship with a woman who could not cook and did not clean. She really couldn't understand how it had happened. Every time Ellen thought about it, it puzzled her no end that she and Clyde had been married nearly 50 years when he died, yet not one of the children raised inside their union had ended up in a normal relationship, not one. 49 years they'd been married, but they'd been together 4 years before that, the years during which Claudette, then Joycelyn, then CJ had been born outside of wedlock, because the only advice her mother had given her on the subject of relationships and sex was, make sure you walk the straight road. Despite the fact Mrs. Silcott had delivered that advice to her daughter the first time she noticed the 2 germinal nubs on the formerly flat expanse of Ellen's adolescent chest, and had then continued to deliver it with increased frequency till it was being said every time the 2 of them parted company, despite all of that, Ellen had absolutely no idea what her mother had been alluding to until after she'd given birth 3 times. Yes, nothing useful had she got from her mother except a small pot of money and the old house back in Montserrat that she'd gone out to have a look at in 1963, then returned from 4 years later, a married woman and mother of 3. The first time she'd laid eyes on Clyde, she'd been
That was wonderful of it, and I've never seen anybody do that with a voice. Really very, very clever. Thank you. That's such a wonderful flavour of the novel. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm now going to open up to questions.
My name's Karen, and I host a podcast called Menopause Whilst Black, and we centre Black people and their experience of menopause. And the final question is always, how do you celebrate yourself? So that's my question to you.
With colour, actually. I like each day, I enjoy my whole being every single day. And, you know, I'm 62 years old now. I feel the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most externally successful I've ever been, but also internally, I feel the most successful. Like, I feel clear, I feel good. And I practice gratitude a lot. I'm very grateful for the things that I have in my life, but I'm very grateful to myself for fighting for those things, you know? So I think loving other people is a celebration for me. Loving my family, enjoying having my mother living with me, being able to buy myself a nice red dress when I feel like it, putting on the red shoe to match it. Do you know what I mean? It's the little things, not the big things, actually. And I go on a really fancy holiday.
I do. So my kids are all adults, and my youngest is like 24, and I think about myself so much now. I like what do I fancy for dinner? Yeah. You know, and then everyone can have like what I fancy for dinner for their own dinner, because I've spent so many years thinking what's going to be okay for everyone to eat and blah blah blah. And I just at the moment I buy daffodils. I love daffodils. I have daffodils in the house. I go away with friends. I make time to make sure that I meet up with friends and speak with other women a lot. I do a lot of maintenance around my friendships. I please myself. I read. I go to places I try to carve out spaces for myself to do what I feel like. I don't feel bad for taking time off because I think that especially women, it's like if you're in the house, you know, you really must put that you might as well put the laundry on because you're only sitting there, right? No, I don't. I give myself the day off, and I just think, no, I don't care. I'm gonna watch TV. I'm gonna read a book. I'm just going to lie here. I don't care. I don't care, whatever it is. I'm going to please myself. I'm just going to I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to have any guilt about that. I give myself permission a lot. Yeah. I'm determined to fully embrace life and live it on my terms.
Great.
So.
Joy.
What she said. I think that the colour, the clothes, I solo dates, talking to strangers, making my voice heard in public. Because I think that, you know, on the tube, I always look and think, why have we got all like this? I'm sitting closer to them, to my parents, and yet we're going to act like we're not sharing space. So I think having having conversations with people, and I think the whole thing that when you connect with people and you see yourself mirrored back. So I also celebrate myself through other people, because I look at that, I've got quality people in my life, and that's been a sort of like a curated life's work. So I think the caliber of people in my life, being able to say yes and no to myself, hearing myself, and being kind to myself, and acknowledging when I do things well, you know, or I was, you know, even if it wasn't that great, it's like, you know what, it's okay, and having a relationship with my inner child.
Yeah.
I'm just going to finish with a quote from the book by Annie Domingo. He's sitting there. And I would have asked you this as a question, as a prompt, but we don't have time. But I just want to put Annie's voice into this space. But it's also to say, especially to young girls, don't let people tell you that you are done, that you cannot do this. You don't have to do everything at the same time. There's nothing to stop you from doing absolutely wonderful things. You know, if I wanted to play the piano, I could learn to play the piano. Badly, but I could play it. You know, we stop ourselves. So, wise words from Annie, and I feel that with three of you, it's been absolutely phenomenal hearing you talk. You haven't stopped yourselves. You're so positive, so much energy. You know, as you get older, people think you're supposed to shrink and become invisible, and your voice goes, and you know, the rest of it. Not at all. Look at this. There is so much more. I feel like I'm just starting. Yeah. And even though we've done a lot, right? Yeah. So that's the energy I think we're getting from this, and it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you today, and please put your hands together for these amazing people.